We want to turn now to some breaking news where former President Trump is speaking now in Lower Manhattan. Let's take a listen.
Based on the judge's comments, at the end of the trial today, it would appear that he is agreeing that all of the transactions that closed prior to 2014 are now out of the case,
which is about 80% of the case. And it's also something that we won on appeal, but was not accepted by this court, but now seems to be accepted by this court. As far as the jury is concerned, it's much different now, I must tell you, than it was 20 minutes ago. We were going to come out and complain that, in this country you're entitled to a jury. But we very much appreciate the judge's decision today, or his statement today, on statute of limitations, which is a very big thing. There's a limited time period. And we did nothing wrong. And if you look at the statements, they showed that even in 2011, I guess the number was $258 million in cash, a very strong company. I don't believe we really, maybe I wouldn't do a couple of deals or something, but I wouldn't have even needed to go to banks. Banks loved our business, they loved our deals, they weren't defrauded, they lost no money, they made money, they had the finest attorneys that there are. Frankly, their attorneys were better than my attorneys. And they made a lot of money, and they considered me a very good client. I paid them back on time, on schedule. There was no default. They never even sent me a default letter. Not one. For years, never got a default letter. And there's no case here. There's no victim. The banks aren't a victim. The insurance companies are a victim. Everybody got paid. It's a terrible, terrible thing. This was for politics. Now, it has been very successful for them because they took me off the campaign trail. Because I've been sitting in a courthouse all day long instead of being in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, or a lot of other places I could be at. This is a horrible situation for our country. It's never happened before. It's election interference. They're interfering with the presidential election of 2024, and the people of our country see it. But this was a big, I say surprise, but it was a great credit to the court that the judge was willing to do this. He sort of overruled himself. And I greatly respect that. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Are you coming back tomorrow?
We may. I'd love not to. I'd love to be campaigning instead of doing this. Because I built a great company. That's one thing people are seeing. All the way back to 2011. And today, it's much bigger and much better and even much more liquid. That was $258 million for a real estate developer. That's a lot of money. It was in 2011. Today, it's much more than that, much, much more. I built a great company and did great things for New York, and they should respect that. I've employed thousands and thousands of people in New York, and they should respect that. The Attorney General of this state is a disgrace. Letitia James is a disgrace. She's a disgrace to our country and to the state of New York. She should focus on all of the violent crime and the murders going on in New York, not on somebody that paid back the banks in full without a default, and in many cases paid them back early. Thank you very much, everybody.
And that is former President Donald Trump speaking in Lower Manhattan after the first full day of his civil trial wraps up here in New York. I'm joined now by NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos. And Danny, Donald Trump saying several things there that we've heard time and time again, calling this election interference, saying he did nothing wrong, saying that everybody got paid. But what I want to come to you is what he just talked about, the ruling, he said, from the judge in the last 20 minutes or so, limiting the amount of transactions in this case. Since we don't have cameras in the courtroom, we're just getting this information right now and just exactly what transpired in that courtroom. But I wonder if you might be able to shed some light on that. What was Donald Trump talking about?
It could be, and of course, no cameras, relying only on reporting that is squeaking out of that courtroom at the very end of the day. But there reportedly may be some indication that Justice Engoron is warming to the idea of the statute of limitations argument. That would be a little unusual because it seems as though he already decided that. He may also be limiting the scope of evidence that is admissible. That could arguably be a minor victory for the Trump team in that some of the evidence coming in, for example, maybe the judge concluded that it's time barred or it's too old, too stale to be of probative value. But again, this is somewhat speculation, given that I don't know the grounds for limiting that evidence. But for Donald Trump, any limitation of the Attorney General's evidence is arguably a win. To the extent he may be referring to the appellate division, the prior decision by the appellate court in New York, you have the trial court, which is very confusingly called the Supreme Court. That's actually the lowest court in New York. Then you go to the appellate division. Trump's team had appealed to the appellate division, but the appellate division, you could say, on the whole, ruled against Trump because if they had ruled for him, he wouldn't be at trial. So, again, we're going to have to wait until we get a little more clarification. But if it's a matter of narrowing the evidence that's admissible, that could be a net positive for the defense team.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.